Welcome to AppleKnows channel. I am Apple, and today I am going to tell you things about airplanes that sound unbelievable but are absolutely real. Imagine you are sitting on a plane, looking out the window, thinking you know how everything works. The truth is, there are secrets hidden in the sky that most people never hear about. Let me take you there. The first thing that shocks people is that airplanes are designed to be struck by lightning. It happens constantly. In fact, statistically, every commercial aircraft is struck at least once a year, sometimes more. Pilots do not even report most of these strikes because the plane is built to handle them. Special conductive materials channel the lightning around the outside of the fuselage and back into the atmosphere. For passengers, the strike might be just a flash of light, maybe a faint sound. For the plane, it is survival by design. Now, here is another truth that makes people pause. The air you breathe on board is not coming from some oxygen tanks in the back. It is called bleed air. Fresh air is sucked directly from the jet engines. Yes, the very engines that burn fuel at thousands of degrees. Before it reaches you, the air is cooled, filtered, and mixed. It is clean and safe, but the fact remains, every breath you take is partly thanks to the same engines roaring outside your window. And speaking of engines, do you know that a modern jet engine is powerful enough to suck in an entire car if it gets too close on the ground? The force of that suction is deadly, which is why ground crew workers must stay at a safe distance during operation. The engines are miracles of engineering, and yet they hold a hidden danger just by being turned on. Let me tell you something even stranger. There is a small black triangle sticker above certain windows on many airplanes. Have you ever noticed it? Flight attendants know exactly what it means. Those triangles mark the best spot to look out and visually check the wings and engines in case of emergency. If something goes wrong, the crew uses those windows to confirm what the instruments are telling them. It is a secret code in plain sight, and almost no passenger knows it is there. But here is where it gets even more shocking. Pilots do not eat the same meals during flights. It is an official safety protocol. The reason is simple but chilling. If one meal were contaminated, sickening the crew, at least one pilot would remain fit to fly. It is a small detail, but it shows how carefully every possible disaster is considered before you ever step on board. Another fact that bends the mind, airplanes can fly for hours with just one engine. If one fails mid-flight, the plane does not immediately fall from the sky. Instead, it can cruise on the remaining engine for hundreds of miles, enough to reach a safe landing. Regulations require that pilots plan routes that never leave them stranded too far from an airport, even over oceans. It is called ETOPS, and it is one of the reasons transatlantic flights are possible today. And since we are talking oceans, did you know there are designated ditching zones across the Atlantic where airlines know in advance they could attempt an emergency water landing if needed? The chances of it ever happening are nearly zero, but aviation authorities still map them out, quietly preparing for an event that most passengers would never dream could happen. Air travel feels ordinary now, but each fact reveals layers of hidden complexity and design. Airplanes are not just machines that move us, they are floating laboratories of survival, safety, and astonishing science. Have you ever wondered why the cabin lights are dimmed during night takeoffs and landings? It is not to help you sleep. The real reason is survival. If an emergency evacuation were to happen, your eyes are already adjusted to the darkness, so you can instantly see emergency lighting, exits, and the outside environment. It is a hidden precaution that could save lives, but most passengers think it is just about setting the mood. Here is something else that most people do not realize. The oxygen masks that drop from above in an emergency do not last for hours. They provide oxygen for about 12 to 20 minutes. That sounds terrifying at first, but it is exactly the time the pilots need to dive the plane down to a breathable altitude where passengers no longer need assistance. Those masks are not designed to get you through the entire flight, they are a bridge to survival while the pilots perform a rapid descent. Let me take you into another hidden fact. Airplane tires are some of the toughest materials you will ever find. They hit the runway at more than 170 miles per hour and take incredible stress. Yet they almost never burst because they are filled with nitrogen instead of normal air. Nitrogen prevents expansion and contraction caused by temperature shifts and reduces the risk of fire. And even if a tire did burst, each landing gear is designed to handle multiple failures without losing control. But perhaps the most chilling truth is that airplanes carry what is called the hidden handcuffs. Yes, every commercial jet is equipped with restraints for passengers who become dangerous. If someone becomes violent mid-flight, the crew has authority to restrain them until landing. Most people never see them, but they are there, part of the hidden world of safety measures that protect everyone on board. Here is a fact that surprises even frequent travelers. At cruising altitude, you are exposed to cosmic radiation far more than you get on the ground. Pilots and flight attendants actually have higher radiation exposure over their careers than workers in nuclear power plants. It is carefully monitored, but it is a reminder that when you fly, you are literally traveling closer to space, and space reaches back. And let us not forget about fuel. Some jets carry over 200,000 liters of fuel inside their wings and fuselage. That weight is so massive that when a plane lands, if the flight has been short, it may need to dump fuel before touching down. Dumping is done at high altitudes where the liquid evaporates before it ever reaches the ground. Passengers rarely notice, but it is a breathtaking reality that jets sometimes pour out tons of fuel mid-air as a safety maneuver. One of the most unbelievable facts, though, is about autopilot. People think the plane practically flies itself, and that is partly true. On long flights, autopilot controls most of the journey, handling speed, altitude, and even navigation. Pilots are still in command, constantly monitoring, but if needed, modern systems can even land the plane almost entirely on their own. It is technology so advanced that passengers barely realize how much of the flight is computer-driven. And here is a detail to make you glance at your tray table differently. They are designed to withstand the weight of a fully grown person. That is because in a severe emergency, cabin crew may need to stand on them to reach luggage compartments or access equipment. What looks like a flimsy piece of plastic is actually built with surprising strength, hidden beneath its simple design. Flying is the safest form of transportation in history, but the safety comes from countless layers of design, engineering, and rules that most passengers never hear about. Every time you sit in that seat, you are part of a system built with secrets that protect you silently from takeoff to landing. Imagine sitting on your seat, sipping your drink, and not realizing that just beneath your feet, there is a hidden hatch leading to the crew rest area. On long-haul flights, many wide-body planes, like the Boeing 777 or Airbus A350, have secret sleeping quarters tucked above or below the passenger cabin. They look like tiny capsule hotels with narrow bunks where pilots and flight attendants rotate to rest. Passengers never see them, yet they are right there, built into the plane like a hidden second world. Another fact that feels impossible but is true: the windows on airplanes are round, not square, for survival. Back in the early days of jet travel, planes like the de Havilland Comet used square windows. The sharp corners created stress points, and tragically, several aircraft broke apart mid-air. The solution was simple but brilliant: make the windows round so stress is distributed evenly. That is why every window you look out of today has that smooth oval shape, a silent lesson learned from past disasters. And speaking of windows, they are far stronger than you think. Each one is made of multiple layers of acrylic or polycarbonate, with a tiny pinhole in the bottom. That little hole balances pressure between the layers so the outer pane takes the full force of cabin pressure while the inner one stays safe. It looks like a flaw, but in reality, that pinhole is the reason the windows do not crack under the stress of high-altitude flight. Now here is something chilling: in the cargo hold beneath your seat, there could be pets, organs for transplant, even human remains. Airlines regularly transport coffins and urns, usually without passengers ever knowing. It is part of the global network of aviation, moving not just people, but also life, death, and everything in between. There is also a detail about turbulence that most people misunderstand. Turbulence almost never causes accidents. Planes are designed to withstand forces far greater than turbulence could ever deliver. A wing can bend almost 26 feet upward before breaking. But airlines keep turbulence frightening on purpose. Why? Because it reminds passengers to stay seated with seatbelts fastened. In truth, turbulence is uncomfortable but not dangerous. The danger comes only if someone is thrown around the cabin. Let me tell you about black boxes. The term is misleading: they are not black at all, but bright orange, designed to survive nearly any catastrophe. They are built to withstand crushing pressure, scorching fire, and deep-sea submersion. And here is the wild part, some modern black boxes are equipped to eject automatically, floating on water with a beacon signal so rescuers can find them faster. They are storytellers of every flight, but ones we hope never have to speak. And then there is the food. You probably noticed that airplane meals taste a little dull, maybe even bland. That is not just the airline's cooking. At high altitude, your taste buds and sense of smell change dramatically because of dry air and cabin pressure. Sweet and salty flavors can drop by as much as 30%. Airlines actually modify their recipes, adding more spices and stronger flavors, just to make food taste normal in the air. Here is a hidden gem of a fact: when you flush the airplane toilet, it does not drop waste straight down into the sky. Instead, it is sucked by vacuum into sealed tanks stored at the rear of the plane. The system is so strong that it can pull waste away with minimal water, which saves enormous weight. The tanks are emptied only after landing, though rare leaks of frozen waste falling from the sky, so-called blue ice, have been documented. Even the paint on airplanes hides secrets. Airlines repaint planes every 7 to 10 years, and the paint alone can weigh over 1,000 pounds. Some airlines even choose lighter colors, like white, because they reduce heat absorption, save fuel, and show cracks or leaks more clearly. That iconic white fuselage is not just for beauty, it is a strategy. Airplanes are like floating mysteries in the sky, hiding layers of secrets you would never suspect. For example, the floor you walk on is not just a simple walkway. Underneath many seats, there are pressure relief panels. In the event of sudden cabin decompression, these panels burst open to equalize pressure between the floor and cargo areas, preventing the floor from collapsing. It is a hidden shield that passengers never even know they are walking on. And about cabin decompression, most people do not realize how fast it can happen. If a window or door were to fail at cruising altitude, the cabin could lose breathable air in just seconds. That is why the oxygen masks drop automatically when cabin pressure falls below safe levels. Pilots wear even stronger oxygen systems, because they must keep control of the plane while passengers focus on survival. The entire design is built on the assumption that you have less than 20 seconds of useful consciousness at 35,000 feet. Now let us talk about something you carry with you every time you fly: your phone and laptop. Many people think airplane mode is just a rule for politeness, but it is actually tied to aviation history. While modern planes are shielded from interference, older navigation equipment was vulnerable to radio signals. Today, airplane mode reduces risk, conserves battery, and prevents signals from bouncing unpredictably inside the cabin. Airlines still enforce it, because in aviation, every small precaution matters. Here is a fact that gives you perspective: the wings of modern airplanes are hollow. They are not just aerodynamic surfaces, they also serve as enormous fuel tanks. On some aircraft, each wing can hold tens of thousands of liters of jet fuel. Engineers design them so the fuel also helps balance the plane in flight. That means when you are sitting by the wing, you are quite literally sitting on top of a flying fuel reserve. And have you ever noticed that pilots almost always say cross-check after announcements? That phrase is part of a critical system. When a plane is on the ground or about to take off, each flight attendant must verify that doors are armed or disarmed for evacuation. Cross-check means another crew member confirms the action. It is a double safety layer that prevents human error when seconds could mean life or death. Here is a stranger detail: the cockpit windows can actually be opened. On many aircraft, side windows can slide open while on the ground. Pilots sometimes use them for ventilation, or in rare cases, as emergency exits. Imagine climbing out of a cockpit window several meters above the ground. That is not fiction, it is part of real escape procedures. Now let me reveal something that unsettles many people. Airplane lavatories have a hidden latch on the outside of the door. Even when locked from the inside, crew members can override the lock in case of emergency, like if someone collapses or needs urgent help. It is a reminder that privacy on a plane has limits, because safety always comes first. One of the most mind-bending facts is about speed. Commercial jets cruise at around 900 kilometers per hour, faster than a rifle bullet leaving some handguns. Yet inside, you feel as if you are barely moving, sipping your drink in calm air. That illusion is a triumph of physics, where speed and stability blend into comfort. And then there are the flight paths. Many people believe planes fly in straight lines across maps, but on a globe, the shortest distance between 2 points is a curve called a Great Circle route. That is why flights from North America to Asia sometimes arc near the Arctic. To passengers, it looks like a detour, but in reality, it is the fastest and most fuel-efficient path. Perhaps the most haunting truth, though, is about safety statistics. Air travel is so safe that you would need to fly every single day for over 19,000 years before facing a fatal accident on average. Behind that number is a mountain of engineering, testing, and hidden safeguards, many of which passengers never even realize are protecting them. Consider this: the cabin you sit in is not fully pressurized to sea-level comfort. At cruising altitude, the cabin is usually pressurized to about 6,000 to 8,000 feet above sea level. That means your body is actually experiencing conditions similar to standing on top of a mountain every time you fly. This is why some people feel lightheaded, get swelling in their feet, or feel more tired than usual after long flights. Now imagine this: on most airplanes, there are tiny holes you will never notice, strategically placed along the fuselage. They are called static ports. These small openings feed outside air pressure into the aircraft's instruments, telling the plane its altitude and speed. They are so vital that even a small blockage, like tape accidentally left on one after maintenance, has led to catastrophic accidents. They look insignificant, but they are lifelines of truth for the aircraft's brain. Here is another detail: when you see those small fins sticking up at the back of the wings, they are not decoration. They are called vortex generators, and their job is to control the swirling air, keeping the wing stable and preventing dangerous stalls. They are like tiny shark's teeth against the invisible chaos of the atmosphere, proving that even the smallest details on an airplane are deliberate. And speaking of wings, airplanes are deliberately tested to the extreme before ever carrying passengers. Engineers bend wings upward in tests until they almost snap, flexing them far beyond what they will ever face in real flight. Some wings are bent up to 90 degrees in stress tests, a sight so shocking it feels like the plane should tear apart, but it proves their strength. The flexibility of wings is one of the main reasons turbulence rarely poses a real threat. Now let me take you to the engines again, because their endurance is staggering. A single Boeing 747 engine can weigh as much as a full-grown elephant, and yet it can continue running even after ingesting birds, hail, or massive amounts of rain. They are designed with incredible redundancy, often tested by deliberately throwing frozen chickens into them during trials to simulate bird strikes. It sounds absurd, but it is part of how aviation ensures that no storm or flock of birds brings a jet down easily. Here is something you would not expect: pilots do not have keys to start airplanes. Unlike cars, large jets are powered up through complex electrical and hydraulic systems controlled from the cockpit. Security is managed on the ground, and once inside, pilots start the plane with switches and procedures, not a key. That is why the idea of stealing a jet is far more complex than simply hopping into the cockpit. Another eerie fact lies in the very materials of the plane. The cabin walls are not just plastic and fabric, they are made of special fire-retardant composites designed to withstand flames and high temperatures. Even the carpets and seat cushions are engineered to burn slowly, releasing minimal toxic smoke, because in an emergency, every second counts. And about emergencies, there is a reason airlines always insist that you put your oxygen mask on before helping others. Without it, at high altitude, you can lose consciousness in under 20 seconds. Parents might instinctively try to help their children first, but if they do, both could collapse before finishing. It is not just advice, it is survival psychology baked into safety instructions. Now consider fuel once again. The fuel used in jet engines, called Jet A or Jet A1, is so stable that you can drop a lit match into a bucket of it, and it will extinguish instead of ignite. It only burns when atomized under intense pressure and heat, which makes it safer to handle despite the massive quantities carried on board. It is counterintuitive but true: the most flammable part of aviation is carefully designed not to behave like gasoline. Finally, there is the reality of silence in the sky. At night, over the oceans, planes fly in long invisible corridors with nothing around them but darkness and stars. Pilots describe the experience as both humbling and haunting, knowing that below is endless water, above is endless sky, and the only thing keeping hundreds of people alive is a machine built on secrets and precision. Then let us continue, because the secrets of aviation stretch further than most people can imagine. Take the flight attendants, for example. Many passengers assume their main job is serving food and drinks, but in reality, service is only a small part of their responsibility. They are first and foremost trained safety professionals. Before ever stepping into a real flight, they spend weeks learning how to fight fires, deliver babies, handle violent passengers, and perform emergency evacuations in total darkness. Every smile in the cabin hides the training of someone who could save your life in seconds. And here is something that feels almost unreal. The air on board is refreshed constantly. About 50% of it comes from outside through the engines, while the other half is recirculated through advanced HEPA filters that remove 99.97% of bacteria and viruses. In fact, the air quality on a plane is often cleaner than in many office buildings. The dry air may feel uncomfortable, but from a hygiene perspective, the cabin is surprisingly safe. Let us look at the landing gear, because those wheels are far tougher than they appear. When a jet lands, each tire can endure weights of up to 38 tons and rotate at more than 200 miles per hour instantly on touchdown. They are inflated to pressures 6 times higher than a car tire. And here is the most surprising part: they can hit the ground over 500 times before needing replacement. Their resilience is what makes landing smooth, even when they look rough. Another fact hides in plain sight: the small triangular panels you sometimes see on the wings, moving up and down, are spoilers. When deployed, they disrupt airflow, not only helping the plane slow down but also forcing it to descend more quickly if needed. In emergencies, spoilers can act like air brakes, dropping altitude fast enough to avoid other planes or dangerous weather. Speaking of avoiding danger, the skies above us are tightly choreographed. Air traffic controllers separate planes by at least 1,000 feet vertically and about 5 miles horizontally. But here is the twist: in reality, two jets can pass each other in opposite directions at a combined speed of over 1,800 kilometers per hour, sometimes only a mile apart. To the human eye, that distance looks terrifyingly close, but in aviation terms, it is a perfectly safe margin. And now let us go to cargo again, because some of it is astonishing. Alongside luggage, airplanes often transport racehorses in specially designed stalls, billion-dollar artworks in temperature-controlled crates, and even satellites on their way to space launches. Commercial flights can carry some of the world's most valuable objects without passengers having a clue. Here is something darker. Every cockpit has an axe. It is not a myth. Regulations require it so that if fire or smoke fills part of the cabin, pilots can cut through panels or insulation. It is a last resort survival tool that almost no passenger knows exists. Hidden behind polished technology, there is still room for something as primitive as an axe. Now let us talk about fuel efficiency, because jets do something remarkable. When a long-haul flight takes off, it can weigh over 400 tons. By the time it lands, it may be more than 100 tons lighter, simply because of fuel burned. That is why planes climb higher and faster as flights progress. The lighter they get, the more efficiently they fly. Another fact that blows people's minds: the wings of many planes contain small red and green lights, plus a white one on the tail. These are not just decoration. They are navigation lights that allow other aircraft to instantly tell direction at night. Red is always on the left wing, green on the right, and white at the tail. If you see red and green side by side in the sky, it means a plane is flying straight toward you. And perhaps one of the most unnerving truths: pilots often fly in near total darkness. Over oceans at night, there are no lights below, only stars and instruments inside. The trust between humans and machines becomes absolute, because outside the window is nothing but black void. It is both terrifying and breathtaking, a reminder that every safe landing is a triumph of human skill working with invisible forces. And so we reach the end of this flight through hidden truths. From lightning-proof fuselages to secret crew bunkers, from engines that swallow storms to tiny details like pinholes in windows, airplanes are far more than machines. They are masterpieces of survival, filled with layers of design and planning that most passengers never see. Every trip you take is backed by decades of testing, regulations, and silent guardians built into every bolt and wire. This has been Apple from AppleKnows channel, and now you know that the sky above us is not just a place of travel, but a place of secrets. The next time you step on board, look around carefully, you will realize you are inside one of the most astonishing creations humanity has ever made. Safe travels, and until next time, keep looking for the truths that hide in plain sight.